So the student came back and he says, you know, George, I don't think it relates to my business at all. And I said, well, we got a problem here. Let's sit down and go through it. So we spent about a half an hour, and I showed him, I convinced him how it was very central to his business, to his service. And we jointly made up a slide, which was very similar to the one that was in Aulette's book. And that turns out to be a central slide now when we tell the story to investors. And so you can read the book on your own, which I highly recommend you do, but it's so much better when you've got a guide to help you through it. There are some other interesting things that Aulette brings out in his book, Disciplined Entrepreneurship, which you don't normally see in a presentation. And there are a couple of chapters on beachhead markets. And his point is that when you're starting up and you're raising money, you cannot afford to select the wrong beachhead. I had a company that we funded, and we gave them, I don't know, $5 million, and they went after a particular market, and after 18 months they came back and they said, well, we had good news and bad news. The good news is we have been able to penetrate that beachhead. We have been able to get legitimate customers, and they like the product, but for every unit we sell, we're losing money because the COCA, or the cost of customer acquisition, in that beachhead is too high compared to the revenue benefit. The lifetime value of the customer was lower than the cost of customer acquisition, which means you don't have a business. In fact, Aulette makes the point that your lifetime value has to be 3 times greater than the COCA, the cost of customer acquisition. Otherwise, you don't have an investable business. There are 3 chapters on LTV and COCA, and he labors the point, which you really need to pay attention to. And what happened with this company that came back and said, well, I got good news and bad news, is that the beachhead that they had selected was not the right beachhead. But they said, oh, don't worry, I found another beachhead market. I found another market sector which is going to be fine, and we want to go after that. But unfortunately, we're out of money, and we need another $3 or $4 million to go conquer that beachhead. And we said, sorry, we're not going to fund you because we really didn't trust that the CEO knew what he was doing. And if you select the wrong beachhead, it can be fatal, and you don't find out for about 1.5 years, and you're fooling yourself. And so what Aulette does is to walk you through the discipline of beachhead markets considered, and he'll force you to put up 5 to 10 beachhead markets, and then analyze each one for its pro and con, and for its COCA and LTV, and then you select the one that makes sense and proceed with that. I mentioned the LTV to COCA, which is in the last few chapters. That is the most difficult part of the book. And one of my recent graduates finished and did a very good job on LTV to COCA. He had an LTV to COCA of about 5, and he wanted to go raise money with a venture capitalist. And the VC took a look at it, and he was going through the presentation. And after about 10 minutes, the venture capitalist stopped on the LTV to COCA slide. The ratio was around 5, and he just looked at it for about 5 minutes. He says, where did you get this slide? And the entrepreneur, the CEO, said, right out of Aulette's book. And he said, well, how did you know about Aulette's book? This is work that generally I, the VC, have to do to calculate the lifetime value of the customer and the cost of customer acquisition. And he said, this is extraordinary that you have done this work. Kudos. And oh, by the way, this is one of the best presentations that I've seen. I can't find much wrong with it. Where did you get this presentation? And he just smiled. And of course, I felt pretty good that I was able to help this entrepreneur. So just in summary again, this is the best book. It's Disciplined Entrepreneurship by Bill Aulette. And if you don't do